Good day and welcome back to another Dbz Dokkan battle video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at the best fighter in the West Quadrant Super Strike AGL Paikuhan event and how it has been updated on Dbz Dokkan Battle Global as a part of his Dokkan Awakening and his Extreme Z Awakening. So obviously two new stages were added, stage 3 and stage 4. And with stage 3 will come his Dokkan Awakening, and with stage 4 will come his Extreme Z Awakening medals. Now Paikuhan as a unit is pretty good. I think he looks pretty interesting. He kind of follows the trend of being like a pseudo support unit like many of the Paikuhan units, and I think he's a pretty good buff for the other World Warriors category, the World Tournament category, just in general. Quite a few categories. I think he is pretty strong and provides some pretty good buffs too. Now obviously this is an update to him, so his Extreme Z Awakening looks pretty good. I would say it looks pretty decent. In terms of his EZA, he's got a nice revamp. He's got attack and defense 140%, he gains attack and defense at 20% with each attack performed, up to 60%. He gives all allies attack and defense of 20%. He gives all allies key +1 in attack and defense at 10%. In addition, when all allies attacking in a turn are super class, and when HP is 80% or more, chance of performing a crit of +50%. All enemies get attack and defense -20%, and a high chance of stunning the attacked enemy when there is an extreme class enemy. Paikuhan's missions are the same as many of the other Super Strike missions, most of them pertaining to clearing the stage 4 within a certain time limit, and also using all other World Warriors category units, and using of course a Goku Angel unit, which makes perfect sense. And then finally, of course, we also have the new stages. So we're going to build a team. We're going to use a free-to-play team at first, then stage 4 is going to kick our ass and we're going to have to adjust that team a little bit. In terms of other World Warriors, in terms of your free-to-play options, you don't have the wildest selection. With Paikuhan included, you have roughly 5 units, and Veku and Frieza are also units that have not yet received their Extreme Z Awakenings, and so aren't necessarily that good overall. So we are pretty limited. I would say other World Warrior Goku is probably the only real usable unit, and he's the only real one you need to use. He will complete one of the missions for you, so I do suggest using him. You obviously don't have to do much else beyond that. So yeah, otherwise just build your team as best you can. Other World Warriors leads are units like Int SS3 Goku. You could use Paikuhan and run a Connected Hope team as well. You could also just run the super class underneath them, so it's all more than fine. These first 2 stages actually have quite big maps, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to try and avoid these stop fights if you're manually doing it. If you're going to auto battle the stage, you don't really need to worry too much about it, because quite frankly you're not going to be attending to your phone. So in reality it doesn't matter too much, but in reality it's pretty well. I think it is to some extent somewhat difficult. I think when you look at these Super Strikes, there is always some kind of limit to these units and to these systems, and I think this is one of those Super Strikes where, because the free-to-play units are quite limited, I think unfortunately we don't have as big a selection of units that you want. And so if you are a player who has recently joined, this could be one that's a bit more difficult for you, and so you're going to probably not be able to run a other World Warriors team. In that case, you just can use whichever category you want, and you can just rerun the stages as many times as you want. It will be slightly slower, it will be a bit more frustrating, but at the end of the day, rather get it done and get Paikuhan, who's a pretty good start to a other World Warriors team, than not running with them. So yeah, that's the first fight. So here you want to basically get 15 copies of Paikuhan. You'll get 1 copy from his missions. I've already farmed and done a time skip to get the 15 copies, and the reason you want 15 copies is because you need to train 2 copies of Paikuhan. So you're going to take 2 copies of Paikuhan and you're going to train them. You're going to have 1 copy that's at SA 10, so max SA, and then you're going to have a second copy that's at SA5. The reason why you train a second copy to SA5 is because you're going to use that unit to essentially take on you're going to use that unit to essentially take on the EZA SA, because when they EZA, his SA level will change from 15 to 20. So you're going to need to kind of obviously do that. You're going to need to obviously push and get his SA to 20. So essentially, yeah, I would say, for me, definitely need to do the second copy. If you're looking at just using Kais, you don't need to use the second copy, although obviously, just full disclaimer, you're not going to have as good a time. You're going to use Kais, and using Kais is not always so advisable, at least to me. But once you've done those 2 copies of the units, you're then going to move on to stage 2. And when you are in stage 2, you are going to essentially just farm the awakening medals. You can also use Paikuhan at this stage in your team if you are lacking Otherworld Warriors category units. So now that we've got our 2 copies of Paikuhan, we will be moving to stage 2, and we will be completing that stage. Now stage 2 is very similar to stage 1 in that it's basically, it is essentially the same thing. So it's literally the exact same stage. Again, you're going to want to try and avoid these stop fights as much as possible. So stick to the left hand side if you are doing it. Obviously, again, if you're auto battling it, then it doesn't matter. But just full disclaimer, if you are going that way, then yes, you are probably going to need to some extent move on with it. So that's pretty much it. I would say beyond that, there's nothing too much about this stage. It is fairly straightforward again, so I'm not really one that's going to kind of look at it in any other way. I think for the most part, it's only slightly harder than stage 1. So you need to farm 7 medals to awaken Paikuhan. You need to awaken both copies, so that is going to be 14 medals in total. So you're going to want to run the stage until you have 14 medals. Obviously, again, if you're not doing the second copy of Paikuhan, then you don't need to worry so much, and you can just do the 7 medals for the base copy. But this is the first Dokkan Awakening. Then we'll move on to the next one, which is stage 3. And then from there, obviously, you've done Dokkan Awakening, and then you'll move on to the Extremes Awakening. But that is pretty much it. So obviously, again, I will time skip and then move on. At this point, also, you can claim the missions, and that'll give you the Turtle and Bulma medals that you need to awaken Paikuhan. So claim those as well, and then you can use those to obviously awaken Paikuhan and move them on to the next stage. So yeah, obviously I have already done that in a sense that, I've already farmed those 14 medals. I'm now claiming the mission rewards. We're going to go awaken both copies of Paikuhan, and then we're going to move on to stage 3. So stage 3, to cut a long story short, stage 3 is fairly straightforward, I want to say. If I can be entirely honest, it is relatively simple. Stage 3, it's a very simple fight, and you only need to farm these medals to obviously awaken yourself further. So it is fairly straightforward, stage 3. Again, you really kind of want to focus on having that like same team lineup and everything, but just making sure that you have your 2 Paikuhans ready. I think when it comes to that, that's pretty much where it stands. I think it's relatively simple in terms of the rest of your like systems and everything you need to do. So without getting like too big into it, I think obviously people probably want to look at like I would say probably want to look at like making sure that they have everything ready for Paikuhan. but yeah, at the same time, it's really not anything too crazy. You know, he as a unit, this super strike process is fairly simple once you are now into it, and once you are obviously, you know, I would say back into the fold of things. You know, I think at that point you're good to go. Once you have, of course, awakened Paikuhan, you will also gain access to a couple more copies of him, and so this is where things get a little bit more complex. So what you're going to want to do at this point is you are going to want to make sure that you essentially, how can I say, you know, you do basically want to kind of like make sure that you do things properly. So I always start with the hidden potential system. I always make sure that I unlock all 4 parts of the hidden potential system. This usually gives me enough in terms of like build and, you know, just overall consistency, that essentially I'm like happy with how things are going, and then from there, like, I unlock the rest of them from the missions, and then I come back and then I'll train the other 5 copies into them. Now it's just important that you don't train the SA5 unit that you have. Make sure that you use the 5 copies, just because you've invested training items into the SA5 unit, so generally you don't want to waste those by obviously using them inside of the other one. But once you've done that, he'll be max SA of 15, and then you can look at going forward into the stage 3. And once you're into that stage 3, then everything starts to look a little bit better. You know, everything starts to run a bit smoother. Again, try and manufacture the highest Otherworld Warriors team that you can, because obviously it is important. It is going to, you know, make things, I would say, a bit like better boost wise, because it's going to make things a bit simpler. But at the same time, you know, it is completely up to you. You don't have to, again, do any of this, but I would suggest that you do, because it is going to help you out overall. So yeah, this stage though, like I said, very, very simple. So you should be able to get this one, you know, fairly simply. I would say this is, you know, a lot simpler. No map, no nothing, no worrying about stop fights or anything like that. So yeah, in general, this was fairly simple. The only thing here is the medal drop rate's not too high, so you can end up spending quite a while in terms of your medals, and just in terms of obviously like trying to farm them. What we're going to do, of course, we're going to do another time skip. So what I'll do is I will skip ahead. I'll farm the 10 medals that I need to Dokkan Awaken 1 copy, and then we'll do the stage 4, because you guys can handle the rest from here. But yes, you will need to farm enough medals for both copies, so you're looking at 20 medals in total, which I think, you know, obviously is just important for you to know. So yeah, that is pretty much it when it comes to, you know, this area, I would say. I think that's where I would say it's all fine. In terms of everything else, you know, it's completely up to you. But yeah, now at this point you want to awaken your Paikuhan. You're going to Dokkan Awaken them, and then you're going to move on to stage 4, which is obviously the pretty tough stage. So stage 4 can be taken on with any team, so you don't have to use an Otherworld Warriors team. You do for the missions, and you do have to use an Angel Goku, but if you are struggling, just use your strongest team. Yeah, it's just gonna do a couple extra runs. It's not the end of the world. Yes, you'll save some runs doing the missions, but none of the stone missions are tied to the category challenges, so don't panic. If you can't beat the stage with an Otherworld Warriors team, or with having Goku in the lineup, then just don't worry about it. This team that I'm using here is about to get absolutely railed, so it is difficult. Like, look, this is the team I went with here. I used a friend Goku. Don't know why I thought this team would work. I really tried it, and it got absolutely handed. So yeah, in terms of item selections, you can use items as well. I like to take Ghost Ushers. I like to take a little bit of damage reduction, like an Icarus, and a bit of a heal, just in case. But yeah, again, you know, like I said, that team got handed. So I'm not even going to show you that, because they literally didn't even get past the first phase. So I changed things up a little bit. I put SS3 Otherworld Goku in. I also put in AGL Paikuhan as leader, and then I managed to take a friend lead in the form of the SSG Goku and Vegeta. Now obviously this means that Goku, the Angel one, is not running under a full lead, but essentially that's the price you pay, I guess, for trying to keep the mission requirements still active. The friend lead doesn't count towards mission requirements, so this is still a full Otherworld Warriors team, and yeah, so we shouldn't have that many issues with anything. Obviously the Super Saiyan God Goku and Vegeta do kind of carry things very heavily, I want to say. It definitely can be quite intense. Yeah, they do pretty much all of the damage. So yeah, that's definitely going to be like probably the most important, I would say, area for you. Yeah, at least in terms of everything. So yeah, it is definitely yeah, I would say it is definitely quite challenging. I did struggle. I tried with the first team that I did, and then I also tried with the how can I say, second team. I tried as well to use the same team, but then use like an Otherworld Warriors lead in the form of SS3 and Goku. Even the increased stats, I got to the final phase, but it just couldn't get it done. There was just far too much damage, really. And the Frieza, the Strength Frieza, and also the AGL Paikuhan himself and the Veku were all just terrible. They just could not do anything properly, and so it just became a little bit of kind of a hindrance, when you discuss like how to make things move. So yeah, that was probably the unfortunate thing in terms of like design, I would say. Obviously overall, you 100% can consider like changing your team up to whatever you need it to be, but I think at the end of the day you do need to kind of like accept that as well. You are going to either have to run it a couple times extra if you can't do the category challenges, and if you can do the category challenges, that's going to save you time. Again, it's not really the absolute end of the world if you don't get the category challenges done. So for me, rather just focus on making sure you have a team that you can finish everything here with quite easily, and then I think you can focus from there, which is probably where you want to be anyway, personally. So yeah, I personally would say that's where I want to be, but again, it's entirely up to you guys. Depends on like what your team build is and what your box is. But yeah, overall Paikuhan wasn't the absolute toughest in the world, so I think for the most part it was all fairly straightforward, at least for me. Obviously again, like it can get a little bit intense, but it's just going to be relatively simple. But yeah, so overall I think you should be fine. If you are not fine, or if you are still struggling, then just come back when you have a stronger team. The event will return, so it's not the absolute end of the world, but it is definitely still quite a struggle, I would say. So yeah, but that's pretty much it when it comes to everything. I don't think there's anything else that you need to focus on. If there is, then I would probably say that at the end of the day, just look at maybe using different items, or maybe applying gear to your units, like even giving them just health gear can generally help quite a bit. So that could be something that's good for you, at least in the beginning. So yeah, I would say you can do that if at the end of the day you want to. But yeah, otherwise just don't worry about it. For the most part, you're not going to struggle with a lot of things. And these super strikes are the same. You can just use a normal team and you should be fine. But yeah, other than that, everything is more than fine. And yeah, at the end of the day, pretty happy with how it all panned out. Obviously, at this point, you're going to farm the additional medals for your units, and then you can kind of take things from there. But yeah, that's it from me. Bye.